So thank you everybody for coming, and today we're going to talk about this ambiguous thing called the creative process in game design. Now, this is who I am before I grew this cat on my face, and I'm a game designer and executive producer, which is basically this. It's like being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Jackass in the same, I don't know, mind. Because on Monday, I design amazing stuff, and the day after that, I am looking on all the stuff that I've designed, and I'm like, I'm not going to make this. This is so fucking expensive. But before we begin, I have a little something that I need to take off my chest, you know? Something just, it sits on me. I think that like most of you here, I also have a Polish mother. And before I came here, I told her, listen, I'm going to Poland, to Krakow, your hometown. And she said, oh, you're always going to those gay design conventions. When are you going to get married? And I told her, listen, it's not, don't say gay design, it's game design. And you should be proud of me. And yeah, I'm proud to be here and talk in front of you guys. So basically, the reason that I've started, I don't know, working on this presentation, like 4 years ago, I worked at this big games company. Some of you probably heard of it. It's called Plarium. And I was a game designer and executive producer there. And throughout those 3 years, I worked my ass off. I worked like for 16 hours a day. It wasn't healthy. My life turned to shit. And after I finished working there, I had this hard look at the mirror. And I really wanted to get the creative process back into my life because it was something that was so missing. And I went into this very, very long journey that brought me here today and to present this process to you. And part of that process was to lose 35 kilos, improve my life, improve how I think, improve a lot of processes in my life. And I think that there is a very strong connection between a healthy life and being creative. And we'll talk about it, hopefully. Hopefully we'll have the time. So another goal that I also had was to create something of my own, some kind of a studio that I have something that I belong to, and I don't work for some corporate or big company. And one day I was watching Princess Bride, and I was smoking a little weed, or too much weed. And I saw that scene where they talk about, beat it or I'll call the Brute Squad. I'm on the Brute Squad. You are the Brute Squad. Any of you are familiar with that movie? Yay! So I was watching that high as a fucking kite, and I was thinking, that's a good name for a studio. And that's how it all started. We're 5 people in Israel. We're creating all sorts of really, really fucked up, weird games. And I'll talk about how we work a little bit. So our first game that we're working on is right now in early playable versions. It's Edgebreakers. It's basically this local PvP game. It's what if tennis had guns and the ball was monsters. So if I kill one monster at my side down below here, that monster appears at your side up there. So if I kill more monsters at my side, I swamp your area with more monsters. But the more monsters I kill at my side, all the monsters that got left become stronger. So I don't know, it's something that we really wanted to create this environment, this gameplay experience where there is tension, like you feel the sweat of your opponent. It's like between 5 to 7 minutes, and currently it's been going nice. Another game that we're working on is Velocity Rage, together with another studio called Mystic GG. And it's a weird combination between combat racing game and card collection, so to speak. So you have all those 4 powers that once you use them, They are being replaced with another power from your deck of powers. And it's an exciting project. We are in alpha stages right now. We intend to release it to PS4 sometime in 2029 or 30 or whatever. You know, fuck dates. So yeah, so this is Velocity Rage, and we're really, really excited about it. But today, what we're going to talk about is what the fuck is creativity? Oh, by the way, I swear a lot, so if it's a problem for somebody, sorry. All right, so what the fuck is creativity? Oh yeah, what is creativity? So, creativity is the process of putting our imagination to work, all right? Now, imagination is something that we all have. We all have. It's a human ability. There is no person on earth with no imagination. Maybe they have an undeveloped imagination, but they have an imagination. We can all remember what we did yesterday, and we can all visualize what maybe we'll do tomorrow, right? It's a human ability. By the way, Sir Ken Robinson, do you know who that guy is? He's talking a lot about creativity, especially in the context of education. My last game was an educational game. It was called Feed the Monster, and it won this prestigious reward in the European Union and Ministry of Education and whatever. And nowadays it helps more than 200,000 Syrian refugee children to learn how to read. And in addition to that, it was translated to more than 60 languages, and it helps children around the world free, no charge. It's an open code, open source. And through my work, I stumbled into this amazing person, and you should read his book and follow his TED keynotes because he's amazing. Now, we all have imagination. Right? And what is imagination? It's the ability of the mind to form and manipulate images, right? We basically in our head, I don't know, what you guys do when you sit at home and you think about whatever you think about, like why I didn't buy that or why I didn't do that. And we all can manipulate and form images in our mind. But imagination is elusive. It's like, sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we imagine things that we don't want to imagine, like in my case, like every time before I go to sleep, all those really weird things starts to appear, and all I want to do is to go to sleep. But my mind says, fuck you, I'm going to play Madonna in your head for 24/7 in repeat, like a virgin. Right? And I imagine all sorts of, like, I don't know, crazy motherfucking things. So basically, imagination is very elusive. It's very, very hard to control. It's basically affected by our emotions and experiences. Now, emotions are something that it's chemical. It's chemical in our brain. It's something that it's affected by our experiences, that if we don't sleep, or we're depressed, or we don't eat, or whatever that's going on in our daily lives, it will affect our emotions even if we don't realize it, all right? So that is why we have to, in order to be creative, in order to use our imagination, we have to prime our mind. It's the first step that we have to do in order to start using this human ability to our advantage. Okay? Now, what is basically priming our mind? I studied film before I went into the games industry 12 and something years ago, a long time ago. And in a film school, you also had to learn acting class for 3 years. And my acting teacher, my teacher in acting class, he taught us something called something called method acting. Any of you know what method acting is? Somebody here from theater or film? 2 points for you. So basically, method acting is you become that character. You immerse yourself, your entire life, into becoming that character. Now, once the camera is off, you don't stop being that character. You continue to be that character throughout the production of the film. And it can take a lot of energy from you, but what it enables you is to prime your mind into thinking and acting and believing and feeling in a certain way. It's a very, very powerful tool, and Daniel Day-Lewis is the master of method acting. Any of you seen It'll End in Blood and all sorts of Lincoln? And yeah, so he's a monster in that. And I think that in order to be creative, we need to immerse ourselves. We need to prime our mind into this state where every atom in our brain is focused on this field that we want to be creative at, okay? It's extreme. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of energy, but it's worth it. For the long run, it's always worth it. Now, in order to prime our mind, we basically can prime our mind in many different ways, but I categorize it into 3 different types. So the first thing, us game designers, easy, is to play a lot of games. So if we want to make a strategic game, or a card-based game, or a whatever game, a puzzle platformer with dildos in space, I don't know, we need to play a lot of games and analyze them in order to basically prime our mind with a lot of game mechanics, themes, experiences, emotions that come from those games. Now, when we are analyzing those games, it's not news here. We need to analyze them both in terms of their mechanics, right? Their aesthetics, their narrative, and their theme, right? We need to understand what makes them interesting for us, Because if we'll just play those games, one after the other, our mind will never remember what we played like a week ago, right? We need to create some kind of a simple system that will enable us to remember what inspired us at that moment, all right? So this is a hardcore metrics table. Any of you know what it is? Probably some of you use it. And it's a very simple table. We have the games that we want to play because they are relevant to the game that we are currently working on. Currently, I'm working on a mobile game called Disco Dungeon. It's a what if we combined Candy Crush with roguelike dungeon crawling game. It's a fucking weird game. So I started asking all sorts of questions in roguelike and Diablo and Darkest Dungeon. And I started asking, like, how can I use the mechanics in Diablo? Or how can I use the aesthetics in Darkest Dungeon? What I like in the narrative of Slay the Spire? Nothing. It's shit. There is no narrative. Or the theme. We need to start asking questions. What do I like about it? What can I take from that? Okay? And this is a very simple tool that will enable us to remember what we liked when we primed and analyzed our mind with all those games. It's a very important tool that helps us remember. Another thing that we need to do is absorb and assimilate. We need to absorb and assimilate a lot of stuff for many, many aspects, not only games, okay? It's basically history, art and music, philosophy, literature, game designers. By the way, how many game designers are out there? 1 hand, 2 hand, 3 hands. All right. Wow. Not many, but all right. So we need to read a lot of shit. A lot of books, a lot of art. We need to go to art galleries. We need to go to movies. We need to read philosophy. We need to know history. I'm obsessed, really, it's a disease. It's a disease with World War II history. I'm obsessed with it. I read everything that I have to read about it. I'm also obsessed with military tactics, all sorts of in battles of antiquity or whatever, and what made them move and what made them think the way they think, and it affects my games, all right? I read a lot of books and literature because it helps me to go into another world, okay? Philosophy is important because it helps us to look at things from a different angle, right? And it also helps us to make a very important point across, right? And art and music, come on. It's a must, all right? Now, in order to use all of this, don't read it, don't read it. It's a lot of shit, but you can take your phone and just photo it. It's a lot of questions. We need to ask ourselves, so for example, in history and mechanics, which mechanics can present these historical events or actions and how, right? Everything that we prime our mind with, we need to ask how we can use it. What's interesting here in terms of narrative? What's interesting in terms of theme? How, for example, are there any game themes that are influenced by this philosophy in terms of theme? I don't know. We need to ask a lot of questions, and we need to note them in some kind of a table or a tool, or write it in blood on your wall. I don't care. But it needs to be written because our mind will fucking forget it. All right? So this is the second thing. The third thing, and I think the most important ever, is to connect and internalize with ourselves, all right? Because, you know, we game designers, we all play the same games, we all probably read the same books, we all consume the same popular media, right? So we will probably create games in our minds that are very similar to each other, right? It's a probability. Now, in order to be especially unique with the games that you create, we need to connect and internalize with ourselves. We have to. And we can do that with our emotions, our experiences, the memories that we have that have some relevance to the game that we want to work on, and also our surroundings. This image, by the way, is from near my hometown in Israel. It's Machtesh Ramon. It's where this huge crater fell, and you can just go, and it's an amazing view. So the surroundings are also super important, right? Because what we see through our mind, through our eyes, affects our minds. It's a total different experience than looking at a screen. Okay, it's super important. I didn't draw this, but a famous person did. I don't know if you know him. He made Zelda. You know that game. So what he did basically, Shigeru Miyamoto, right? That's his name, I think. Right. So basically, what he did was when he invented or game designed Zelda, he went back into his. He traveled as a kid a lot, right? He traveled around his house and he went into this forest with caves and all sorts of weird shit. And when he started to design Zelda, he basically used these surroundings, these memories and experiences and emotions in order to create the amazing adventure that Zelda presented to us. I think it was like, what, 86? I don't remember. So yeah, that's a very, very powerful example of what we can do with our memories and emotions. And I think it's a famous example. He's talking about it a lot in his creation. Now, we prime our mind until it unleashes, yeah? We stuff a lot of shit into it, a lot of games, a lot of literature, a lot of experiences. Our head is ringing with content. It's ringing. We're priming it like it's a keg powder, like it's a cannon that's about to explode and unleash the spark. Boom. Oh my fucking God, I have the shivers right here. This is the moment, right? We all know that moment. It's better than sex, maybe. I don't know. So basically the spark, what is it, right? It always starts with a question, always, right? It always starts with a question of how can we mix different game mechanics together, right? This is one question, but it always starts with a question, but those questions can be there's a lot of kinds, and we'll look at 3. So for example, I need your help here. What if we mixed FIFA with Demolition Derby? You, the cool guy that's just right, you nodded. Yeah, take a pick, the 3 of you, together. 1, 2, 3. Boom, Rocket League, right. It's a simple example, right? Now, you guy, dude, what happens, what is the mix that they did with this game? Do you know? No? Somebody play this game? Right, with Super Mario, right? So it's what if we mix Super Mario Brothers with XCOM? So a first question that we usually, it's very easy for us to ask is what if we mix something with something in terms of their mechanics, but we can also do it in themes, right, and narratives. The mixing possibilities are endless. Another question that we usually ask ourselves is how can we limit one or several game mechanics, right? Take a certain game that has a very specific or very famous mechanic and limit it, right? Or limit one component out of it. So for example, what if we limited Zelda's gameplay to 60 seconds? Can anybody take a guess? Boom, Minute, the most amazing game that came out a year ago? 2 years ago? I don't remember. But it's amazing, right? And it's another technique that we can do. Another famous game, PUBG, right? What is the question that probably somebody asked? Many questions. So I'm not going to ask one of you because it will be confusing. But I don't know, I choose Arma. I don't know why, because it's an arena or whatever. But what if the arena in Arma 3 was slowly getting smaller, right? We're taking a game component, we're taking a game mechanic, and we're limiting it, right? And then we need to see, like, by limiting it, how it affects other stuff, right? When we ask these questions, they open other possibilities that affect other game components, other game mechanics, right? Another question is, what will happen if we'll remove a core game mechanics altogether? So let's take, for example, what if we remove the guns from first-person shooters, right? I don't have an example for that. I just wanted to throw this question out in the air. Right? And another question that we can ask is, like, for example, what if we'll remove base building mechanics from an RDS? Okay? So what we're doing is we're taking a very, very famous genre, right? With a very famous set of mechanics, and we boil them down to their core mechanics, base building, unit point allocation, whatever. And we ask ourselves, like, what happens if we take one out of those 6, one out of those 4? How it affects the entire, the other core mechanics together? What other questions and problems starts to arise from tinkering with this question? All right. Now, we keep asking these questions until one of them unleashes a brainstorm, right? And a brainstorm can happen in our mind, right? It starts in our mind, but it also starts when we talk with each other. That's also a very important aspect of creativity, is to basically share your ideas with other people. It's super important, and that's why conventions such as Digital Dragons are super important. It's not only for networking or showing off who's got the biggest dick, it's also sharing ideas, right? It's also talking to other people, looking at their perspectives. Now, it's very important to know and understand that our mind never makes big jumps. So for example, from the outside, when we look at the creation or the game of somebody, for us it's like, oh my God, how you took that and all the way and you combine it with that. It looks like that person made a huge jump, right? But our mind always takes small steps. It never makes big jumps. Never. What we do is, once we have a spark that unleashes a brainstorm, It unleashes basically a sequence of questions or ideas that we mix them together. So I say to you, what if we mixed, I don't know, match 3 with roguelike, and you tell me, I think it could be this and that. I think we can use these kind of mechanics, these kind of, I don't know, aesthetics, right? And we ping pong, and we create all those very, very small steps that enables us to reach from point A to point Z, and that makes it the whole game complete. I don't know, it sounds philosophical, but I'll try to explain it later. Now, it's also important to know that ideas and knowledge are not passively stored. It's not like a computer. It's not. Like we read books and it's stored passively and we just add one page and one data on top of data. It's not like that. Okay? They are actively constructed like a jigsaw puzzle. So it's basically puzzle from here, a puzzle from an experience, a puzzle piece from a book, a puzzle piece from a game, a puzzle piece from whatever, right? It's many, many puzzle pieces that combines this knowledge or this, it combines into this knowledge or this idea. And this is how our brain works. We cannot change it, okay? We cannot change it. And it raises a problem in brainstorming or in communicating ideas. That is why basically sharing ideas with others is always tricky. We all build our knowledge and ideas with different pieces, all right? Even if we had the same memory at the same time and we both play the same game, we, I don't know, read the same book or, I don't know, we will construct our knowledge and idea with different pieces. So in order to share my piece with your piece, all right, effectively with others, basically, what we need to do is we need to connect our ideas to their values and interests. So we need to know that person. We need to ask them, how do you see things? What do you, like, what interests you? We need to fully understand that other person. We need to empathize with their mental process in order to basically together construct some kind of a jigsaw piece that will fit their narrative, will fit their mold, okay? It's very important to, first of all, get to know each other, right? And ask questions. What kind of a food do you like? Do you come here often? You know, stuff like that. Now, each idea, basically, that we exchange, right, creates a new possibility. Boom, another jump with another question. Right? And that generates another question or questions, right? And those questions makes more possibilities. It's like the Big Bang or whatever. It's like a lot of questions that start to arise. And there is a problem with that, right? We suddenly are bombarded with so many, many, many questions and ideas that we don't know, like, all right, it might lead, I got ahead of myself. So it might lead to too many ideas, right? Too fucking many, we can lose ourselves. It can overwhelm us. And then we get into this flight or fight thing, right? Where we just leave it and, it's a bad idea and we just don't touch it, right? It's too overwhelming sometimes to find like this focus point, right? So how can we deal with this overload? How can we know what is good or bad? How can we know, that ideas are working, they're good, okay? So we need something called the Cullen criteria. It's this criteria of what basically serves our game better. Does it serve my game? My game will be amazing with it or not, all right? Can the game function with it or without it? There's all sorts of questions that we need to ask. And in order to check good ideas, one of the tools that I use, oh, by the way, have nothing in your house that you do not know to be useful or to be beautiful. William Morris is one of the earliest graphic designers. He created a lot of amazing tapestries. And when I design games, I follow this maxim, right? I follow it because it helps me, it gives me some kind of an anchor in this swamp of ideas that I have no idea what's good or bad. We need to minimize them, distill them into something, some kind of a concept. Now, the first tool that I use, and I think many game designers use, is we create some kind of a gameplay, a mental gameplay model, all right? We are basically imagining in our head this sequence of gameplay over and over and over and over and over and over and over, or in my case, at 2 o'clock at night, where I'm dead tired and I want to go to sleep, and my mind tells me, "Hey, how you doing, buddy? It looks like you're very tired. Listen, I'm going to put on a loop this game that we're working on until 7, when you'll need to wake up for work." And when we do that, and we add some stuff, we remove some stuff, suddenly things look maybe different. So, for example, pilots, all right, when they need to prepare themselves for a flight, what they do is they're creating some kind of a make-believe, okay? A make-believe of all the crises, all the shit that might happen to them during their flight. So they're basically creating some kind of a mental model. They're making they're pretending like what will happen to them during that flight. So if our engine will blow off, you will push this button, I will pull this lever, we will call this, we will do that, all right? And game designers should do the same thing. With this mechanic, when I'll shoot it and I'll go down, that will happen. We'll need to create some kind of a small, I don't know, movie clip. Okay, so it's basically a visualized story of our planned game on repeat. I know, it's crazy, but believe me, it works. We suddenly see what doesn't work. Another tool that we use, it's a tool that I already presented to you guys, but in a different context maybe. It's cross-reference and ideas metrics table. So basically, we have ideas on this column, ideas on this row, and we need to see how they can connect with each other. How this idea connects with this idea. How the match 3 can be connected with the movement of the character on a grid of tiles. I don't know. Let's see. Let's ask all sorts of questions, and let's see if it sticks. If you have a lot of things that stick to each other, probably they work good. So if you have a row of green squares, it means that idea 4, it's cool. But if you have a column of red things that doesn't work with each other, probably it's not a good idea. All right? Don't throw it. Put it aside. But probably it doesn't work. We need to communicate our ideas. All right? Because you guys have a different perspective than mine. So you probably will notice or you will know if there is a problem with some idea. And you will ask questions that I will never ask myself because I don't have your background, right? I don't come from where you come from. So it's important to communicate our ideas by writing them down and presenting them as much as possible to as many people as possible, all right? Gather some intelligence, gather some data. This is my notebook. I have a lot of this. It just follows me everywhere. Write a lot. Write everything. And we also, that's everybody knows that, we playtest a lot. And by playtesting, we're creating, again, this story that helps us ask all sorts of questions and check mechanics to see if they work together or not, right? Super simple, super obvious, right? It can be a paper mock-up or a simple code, doesn't matter. It can be role-playing without clothes. We mix, test, repeat endlessly, right? The more bad ideas, by the way, the more bad ideas we get rid of, the higher chance for good ideas to emerge. It's mathematical. The more bad ideas you churn out, the higher chance for good ideas to emerge. So it's just a question of time. It's just a question of process. Never give up. If you have a table, that metric table, with shitload of bad ideas, that's fine. That's fine. Relax. Drink some gin and tonic, in your underwear. Just relax. Let it sink in. and good ideas will eventually come up. All right? Now we keep mixing, testing, repeating this thing, and we are generating value. We are generating good ideas after good ideas after good ideas, and those good ideas connect in more than one way, not only the mechanics, but in, I don't know, the theme or the narrative, right? And we keep generating we keep generating that until we have enough, all right? Now, when is enough? Enough is enough, right? When? It's like we can keep doing this forever, right? So we keep doing that. We keep doing that when we roughly know how it feels, how it looks, how it affects us emotionally, all right? And how it plays. How it's like, you know, what's going on in this game, this idea, this concept. Yeah, so then we can basically boil our ideas down into some kind of a concept, some kind of a document, some kind of a whatever. Now, this is something that basically couples all the process together, okay? So everything starts with a spark that unleashes a brainstorm, and we create this cooling criteria that generates more ideas, that feeds that brainstorm. All the bad ideas go to the side. We never throw them, because one day, probably, when we'll get back to them after 20 years or whatever, they will give us more ideas in a different perspective. Once we have, we basically generate value. Once we have enough value, we solidify it into a concept, and that concept, basically it creates more sparks. It creates more sparks maybe for different games. Okay? So this is basically in a nutshell, the entire creative process, technically, I think. Now, this is very, 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 very important. Creativity is a muscle. Creativity is like going to the gym. If you will neglect your life, if you will say, oh, tomorrow I won't be creative. I think I'll just pick my nose for 24 hours. I won't do anything with it. It's gonna wear off. You're going to be slower the next time. You do need to be a creative person. You will be, it'll be more confusing to you. So you need to make creativity a habit. It's like athletes go to the gym or go to their sports program every fucking day for several hours. Songwriters and musicians write a music piece one every day. It can be shit, but they do it every day, okay? It's important. Now, in order to make something a habit, we need 4 things, okay? By the way, I recommend you guys read Atomic Habits. It's an amazing book. It'll help you to make your life better, I think. It's a self-help book. Don't be cynical with it. Read it. It'll surprise you. Now, creativity, again, it's a wild mind, right? But it's also a disciplined eye. It's something that we need to develop. We need to develop this discipline in order to be effectively creative. Now, in order to make it effectively creative, we need to make it obvious. We need to declare our intentions, not only by, this is my calendar, whatever, most of it is in Hebrew, so whatever, but we need to declare our intentions. We need to give a time slot for everything, and we need to also say it out loud. Today, at 9 o'clock, at home, I'm going to work on the game mechanics of my game, Darkest Dungeon, or whatever, Disco Dungeon. Sorry, I wish it was my game. Right? By saying that out loud and hearing it through our own ears, it creates a different process than saying it in our heart. It's a different process. And it basically helps you to just get shit done. Start doing your stuff, all right? The second thing is we need to make it attractive by adding things that we love. So for example, I love to create electronic music. It's one of my biggest hobbies. I have a shitload of cables and machines that do bleep with all sorts of weird buttons. People that come into my house, they think that it's like a crazy lab. And I love it. I love to tinker with it. And it helps me, you know, it's like a warm-up before I do creative stuff. Okay? So make your process attractive. Make it easy. All right? You need to surround yourself with things that helps you to be creative. All right? Notebooks and check marks and tokens and dices and books about game design, books about art, books about history. It needs to be right there, right? You don't need to go to Amazon, buy it, wait 3 weeks, and then read it, because then it will create some kind of a barrier between you and the creative stuff that you really need to do today, okay? So you need to make it easy for you, all right? You need to reduce the friction by making all of those things that helps you to be creative close, super close, okay? Basically like a latex suit. That's how close it needs to be. All right? And we also need to make it satisfying, right? We have to make it satisfying. If it wasn't satisfying, we will never do it. How can the creative process be satisfying? First of all, the process itself is satisfying, I think. But we can also make it more satisfying by rewarding ourselves, right? We need to reward ourselves with, I don't know, something. So I love to share my progress. But each and every one of you can pick some other thing that makes it satisfying for you. All right? So it's important for the creative process to be satisfying as well. And that's it. Thank you very much. I have 3.5 minutes for questions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Yay, one question. All the other people, by the way, what they're thinking right now, who is this person who asks questions? We're hungry, motherfucker. We need to go and shove some food into our mouths. Right?
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I'm joking. No, I'm joking.
If it's true, I am sorry.
As many questions as possible.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you. I very enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
And I find it very educating and entertaining.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you for some kind of advice, because recently I'm searching for game idea that I really can connect with my emotions and really believe in it. And out of all my game ideas, I have one that I would really stand up for, but I know right now from my experience that I'm not ready to do it, because it's just too big, and from game design perspective and from the scope of the game, I'm just not ready. I don't have resources.
Are you working alone?
I have like 3 people right now for it.
So you're not alone. So it's not like the weight of the world is only on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, it is something. But
so share it with other people. Talk with them, and by sharing, you make it easier for you to start this process. And maybe by working with other people, it will make it less bleak, less hard, less big. Okay? I never work alone. Never. It creates culpability. It creates some kind of you're like, all right, I'm working with these people. I have to deliver. You know? It helps you to get up in the morning, okay? It creates some kind of a responsibility.
Yeah, and the question I'd like to ask is, would you rather go for it if you have something you feel for it, just go, whatever it takes, or would you rather prepare for it by making few smaller games?
Well, it's very, very personal question, I think. But I think that if it's something that sits on your chest and inside your head a lot, and it's something that your mind is burning to just release to the world, just start by doing it. Don't create all sorts of excuses. Just, like they say in that whatever company, just.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We have 25 seconds for another question. I'm joking. I'm not hungry. I can't eat. Who's hungry? Like, why do you, like, we don't need food.
Okay, that's it, I think.
Thank you very much,
everybody.